So today I want to talk about something pretty exciting that just dropped in the AI world. We are looking at GLM-4.6 from Zifu AI, and honestly, this release is kind of a big deal, especially if you are someone who cares about open source models or you are tired of spending crazy amount of money on API calls. Alright, so before we dive deep into this, let me just give you some context here. The AI space right now is absolutely wild. Like we just saw, Claude 4.5 Sonnet came out, OpenAI dropped Sora 2 for video generation, and Gemini 3.0 is supposedly coming next week. It's just non-stop. But what really caught my attention is this new GLM 4.5 model because it's positioning itself as a serious competitor to the big player while being open source and way more affordable. Now I have been testing this model pretty extensively over the past few days and I want to share my honest thoughts with you. I am going to show you some real world examples, compare it with some other models and talk about whether this is something you should actually consider using for your project. So let's start with the basics. GLM 4.6 is built on a mixture of expert architecture with 355 billion total parameter. Now here is the interesting part. It only uses about 32 billion active parameters at any given time, which makes it way more efficient than you might think. This is not some massive model that's going to destroy your compute budget. The team at Zifu AI really focused on making this practical for real world use. One of the biggest improvements with this version is the context window. They increased it up to 200,000 tokens for input, which is a huge jump from the previous 128,000 tokens that the 4.5 version had. And you can output up to 128,000 tokens, which is pretty solid. This basically means you can work with much larger code bases, longer documents and more complex tasks without running into context limit. Alright, so what about performance? This is where things get really interesting. According to the benchmarks, GLM 4.6 is performing really close to Claude Sonnet 4 and in some specific areas like live code bench and certain reasoning tasks, it actually outperforms it. Now it does trail behind Claude Sonnet 4.5 in overall coding ability, but let me show you what this model can actually do right now in real time. So I have got this chat interface open and we are going to test this together. Let's start with something visually cool. I am going to ask it to create a matrix style digital rain effect web page. Okay, it's generating the code right now. You can see it's writing out the HTML, adding the CSS, and now it's working on the JavaScript for the animations. This is pretty fast actually. Alright, it's done. Let me copy this and open it in a browser real quick. Okay, here we are. Look at this, the matrix rain effect is running perfectly. You can see the green characters cascading down, they are fading as they fall, and the animation is really smooth, no struggling at all. This was generated in one single shot, no debugging needed, pretty impressive. Alright, now let's try something more practical. Let's build a task management app. So I am going back to the chat and I am going to give it a detailed prompt. I am typing create a task management app with the ability to add tasks, mark them complete, delete tasks and filter between them, active and completed. Okay, it's working on it. You can see it's writing the HTML, setting up the input field, the button, the task list. Now it's adding the CSS with the colors and spacing and all that. And now the JavaScript for all the functionality. This is a bit more complex, so it's taking a little longer. But we are still looking at maybe 30 to 40 seconds. Alright, so let me open this up. Okay, here is our task management app. Let's test it out. I'm going to add a task. Let's say finish video script, and nice, it appears with the checkbox and delete button. Let me add another, edit the video, and one more, upload to YouTube. Let's check this one. See that it gets crossed out nicely. Now you can see this is all fully functional. The design is clean, the interactions are smooth, everything worked perfectly, and this was all done in one prompt. No back and forth needed. For a model that cost way less than the alternatives, this is really solid. Alright, so let's talk about pricing because this is honestly one of the biggest selling points. GLM 4.6 cost about 6 cents per 1 million input tokens, and for output you are looking at around $2.20 per million tokens. Now compare that to the Claude Sonnet 4.5 which is charging $3 per million input tokens and $15 per million output tokens. We are talking about a price difference of like 7 to 20 times depending on how you calculate it. That's massive, especially if you are running high volume applications or doing a lot of development work. And also Zifu AI also offers something called a GLM coding plan, which is a subscription specifically designed for developers. It starts at just $3 per month. That gives you access to use GLM 4.6 in popular coding tools like Claude Code, Klein, OpenCode, and RuCode. When you compare that to what you would pay for similar access to Claude models, the value positioning is kind of insane. They are basically saying you can get Claude level performance at 1/7 the price with 3 times the usage quota. Now I want to be fair here and talk about the limitations too, because no model is perfect. GLM 4.6 still lags behind Claude Sonnet 4.5 in pure coding benchmarks. On certain tasks like Swi bench and terminal bench, Claude has a noticeably lead. So if you are doing extremely complex coding tasks where you need the absolute best performance and cost is not an issue, Claude Sonnet 4.5 might still be your best bet. But here is the thing, for most real-world use cases, GLM 4.6 is more than capable, and the cost savings are so significant that it's worth considering the trade-off. Another thing I noticed is that GLM 4.6 sometimes uses more token than necessary for certain tasks. It's not as optimized in token uses as some other models, but honestly, given how cheap the tokens are, this is not really a deal breaker for me, and Zifu AI is actively working on improvements based on users' feedback, which is encouraging. So if you are a developer who does a lot of coding work, especially if you are working on projects where you need to make a lot of API calls, or you are using AI coding systems regularly, this model is absolutely worth trying. The combination of solid performance and extremely competitive pricing makes it a no-brainer for many use cases. The fact that it's open source with available weights means you can also run it locally if you have the hardware, which gives you even more flexibility. For agentic workflows, it's excellent. The tool usage is sophisticated, the reasoning capabilities are strong, and it can handle complex multi-step tasks without getting confused. I tested it with web scraping, API integration, and multi-file code generation, and it performed well across the board. Is it perfect? No. Like I said, it's not quite at the level of Claude Sonnet 4.5 for pure coding benchmark. And if you need the absolute cutting edge performance regardless of cost, you might still want to stick with the more expensive options. But for the vast majority of developers and use cases, GLM 4.6 offers an incredible value proposition. You are getting near top tier performance at a fraction of the cost. One more thing I want to mention is the community around this model. Because it's an open source model, there is a growing ecosystem of developers who are experimenting with it, sharing tips and building tools around it. That community aspect is valuable, especially as the model continues to evolve. So that's basically my thoughts on GLM 4.6. It's a strong competitor in the coding model space. It's priced incredibly well and it's open source, which I think is really important for the long-term health of the AI ecosystem. The team at Zifu AI has put together something impressive here, and I am excited to see where they take it next. If you found this helpful, let me know in the comments what you think about GLM 4.6. Have you tried it yet? How does it compare to the other models you have been using? I would love to hear your experience, and if you have not tried it yet, I would definitely recommend giving it a shot. Alright, so that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.